What did you do to deserve that?
Oh, look. Making light of domestic violence. Making it into a funny joke.
Domestic violence is not typically one-sided. It's usually both parties engaging in physical violence.
I want everyone to listen to that real clearly, because this is one of the talking skin tags that is investing all of her energy into defending Brian Carlsen. And she just said, domestic violence is both people's fault. They both participate in that. Is there like a victim-blaming handbook, or is that an original thought by you? She is a bad person. She is a terrible human being. She isn't bending over backwards for Brian. She's pinning both ankles behind her ears and then lathering herself in like animal lard to be ready. And between his ex-girlfriends and his porn history, which I have seen, you're about as far away from what he's interested in fucking as possible. And yet somehow I'm pulling for you. Some small part of me has my fingers crossed that you crazy kids find each other. And I'm wondering if you keep that same energy when you're the punching bag. No offense, but I don't want to sound racist, but when you add but, it negates everything that came in front of it. Like this. Domestic violence is beyond evil. But with that but, you've made it clear you don't give a shit about domestic violence or the people who've experienced it. That video is going to get that slimy underbelly to just roll over and show itself, and boy, you trolls did not disappoint. Just a cornucopia of shitty people. All of the men's rights advocate scumbags. People who are like, you were wrong to say this. Click, it takes you 2 seconds to go to their profile and see a video of them just being absolute human garbage. Like, it's amazing how many people who had a problem with what I said loved the phrase, let's go Brandon. Oh, and of course, she responded exactly how I knew she would, because a hit dog will holler. And boy, did she. Just with the tears. This is not your first crying video, sweetheart. Every time you're called to task, every time you're called out, you start the waterworks. But I went through it too, and I was to blame. So everyone who has experienced this is to blame. Garbage. And of course she's experienced domestic violence. Everything about her screams that. She is a rage farmer. She surrounds herself with drama. She surrounds herself with toxic people. She doesn't know how to exist without it. But for the few who were like, went over your heads, you didn't get that I wasn't actually advocating for her to experience domestic violence. You didn't catch how deeply and firmly my tongue was pressed in my cheek. Those few who were like, this is too far, this is wrong. You should really take a moment to read all the other comments. You should read the hundreds of comments from actual survivors who are traumatized by what she said. Because so many have had an abuser say, look what you made me do. So many have had a family member say, what did you do to make him act that way? And her words perpetuated that. So all of you who are upset by what I said, spare me your fake outrage. Prime example of why I called her out on her takes of domestic violence, because I knew she had supporters who thought like this. This isn't the only one. She's right. It takes two to tango. I mean, if you mean in the sense of like a boxer who needs to work the heavy bag needs a heavy bag to do that, so therefore the heavy bag is a participant in that scenario. Is that the two tangoing? But something was brought to my attention today. I speak about it. Something that I said and how it was perceived differently than what it actually meant. And I definitely want to clarify that. It revolves around the fact that I started that video by calling her a walking skin tag. Now, anyone who's followed me for some time and watched a lot of my videos knows that's a term that I use pretty regularly. I just did a video earlier tonight about a white supremacist. I called him a walking skin tag. Some people who saw the video about her, though, were not familiar with me using that term and weren't necessarily familiar with what a skin tag is and thought it was somehow racially motivated. So first things first, when I say skin tag, I'm talking about this. It's these little balls of skin that will form on areas of your body when like there's friction, a lot of times like armpit, inner leg, that kind of thing. They are annoying, useless hunks of flesh. So when I say someone is a walking skin tag, I'm saying they're a walking, annoying, useless hunk of flesh. But some people were unfamiliar with what a skin tag is, and because she's a woman of color, thought what I was referring to is some of the horrible things that have happened to black people, especially in the Americas, like being skinned and their skin used for like furniture and decorations, or even worse still, when black people have been killed and cooked and eaten by white people because white people did that shit. And that is not at all what I meant. I could hate someone for everything that they're about, and their skin color and ethnicity has nothing to do with it. That's like saying, I hope you get lynched. I would never do that. That's horrible. And then, of course, there's people who thought I was actually wishing domestic violence on her. Not. Could have chosen my words better. I'll say that, for sure. What I was saying was, she's trying so hard for this person to pick her. Like, is what you want for us to all be like, yes, this should happen? And when you are literally harassing victims of his on this app, attacking them, calling them liars and harassing them, will you keep that same energy when it is you? That was the point of that. But there will be those who say, you said what you said, you're backpedaling. Fine. You're welcome to think that. I know what I meant. I know what I said. I'm happy to clarify because I don't want anyone who's experienced, especially domestic violence, to think that I would want anyone to have that happen to them. And there's a lot of domestic violence survivors sharing their stories in those comments. And there is even one that I spoke to today who said they felt partially at blame because there were times they did egg the person on in hopes that they would kill them. But that was because they wanted escape. So even if you were in that situation, it is not your fault.
Normally I give my mutuals grace before doing videos about them. But these two goofies, I'm on your bumper with all red shells. Buckle up. Let's talk about it.
Domestic violence is not typically one-sided. It's usually both parties engaging in physical violence.
I want everyone to listen to that real clearly because this is one of the talking skin tags.
Then you go on to dehumanize this black woman.
She's pinning both ankles behind her ears and then lathering herself in like animal lard.
And then for someone who stands with the black community to wish domestic violence on her?
Some small part of me has my fingers crossed that you crazy kids find each other. And I'm wondering if you keep that same energy when you're the punching bag.
I'll be right back for you. Black Lives Matter, right? And you follow me? Yet this is what you say on Tizzy's video? Then you tell a black woman to run along? And y'all wonder why Lex Scott ally training is so fucking important. Y'all thought y'all ate. Keep that same energy with me, goofy. Thank you so much for this, Lex Scott. Lex Scott said he's not defending her bad take. He is calling out his bad take. Duh. Now in that, let's be very clear about something. Saying things like this.
Domestic violence is not typically one-sided. It's usually both parties engaging in physical
will never be okay. Going after our exorcist was not okay. Going after the victims of this disgusting individual was not okay. And then to go so far as to victim blame all of those whom, including myself, have been through domestic violence, sheer and utter disgusting. But many of you, out of your sheer love for a creator, which I completely understand, you're defending shitty behavior by pitting it against other shitty behavior. And we can call that out while simultaneously acknowledging that both are wrong. The likes of which I addressed in my comments. This is why Lex ally training is so important.
Actually, I could have disagreed with her without disrespecting women. And while I didn't set out to disrespect women, there are still women who felt disrespected by what I said and did. And therefore, I failed. Now, I think my anger toward what she has done and what she represents is completely justified. But the reality is, I went harder in that video than I do in some others for a very specific reason. And it had nothing to do with her being a woman of color or her being a woman. See, she represents a very specific side of TikTok and a group that is actively harassing someone that I care about, as well as some others, including victims of Brian's. So my thought was, if I'm aggressive and abrasive, and I kick the hornet's nest, they may come after me and forget about them. So it wasn't her specifically that made me feel that angry, it was this group, and I wanted their attention. And for the first day and a half or more, it worked. That's who was upset in my video, with a lot of survivors of domestic violence thanking me for the video. But as the trolls drifted away, then there came voices of people who didn't feel like I had helped them, victims who felt like my words and actions were triggering to trauma that they have experienced, or other people of color who either thought that my words were based on racist beliefs, Or just seeing a cis white man speaking to a woman of color that way, with that kind of aggression, feeling like that could be them and not feeling safe. And I don't want that. I am supremely sorry for making anyone feel that way. Some thought I was wishing sexual assault on her, and they were upset by that, and I understand, and I am sorry. Some thought that I was, wanting her to actually have domestic violence happen to her, which I wasn't. But people feeling like that's what I was saying hurt them or made them feel unsafe, and I am sorry. I am a human who is flawed, and I'm going to make mistakes. And learning the hard way that the way I said and did things hurt some of the very people that I wanted to help and protect informs me in a very real way that I will not soon forget to not make those mistakes in the future. I'm going to still make mistakes, but I try genuinely to learn from the ones I make and to learn about how my words and actions affect people. I want my words and actions to help, not hurt. So I apologize to anyone who was hurt by what I did. Genuinely from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry that I made you feel uneasy or unsafe.